Hello and welcome to the Everything is Black and White podcast. It is time for the match preview with myself, Andrew Musgrove, and John Gibson for the second time this week. You lucky people. Newcastle United, of course, beat Brentford earlier in the week 2-1. So the good feeling is still very much surrounding everybody connected to Newcastle United. And they now travel down to Leicester on Monday to the King Power, hoping to continue that winning run. John, welcome back to the podcast. How are you keeping? Are you well?
I am good. As long as Newcastle win, I'm happy. I mean, it wasn't the greatest performance, but it was the best possible result.
Yeah, it was. I mean, the 3 points is what mattered more than anything. It wasn't a game that lived there, will live long in the memory. But as we say there, the victory was the important thing, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, without a shadow of doubt. I mean, we knew that they weren't going to be as good as they were at Wembley because you can't keep playing 10 successive games like that. And of course, that was extra special in the World Forward because of the occasion, because of what it was at stake. First domestic cup in 70 years, etc. This was different. It was bread and butter. They had to go about the job. And they went about the job well. I thought the final pass was often sloppy and wayward a little bit. But this side it had 5 away wins on the trot, and we got the job done. And that is between now and the end of the season. Eddie had said that sometimes we're going to have to grind out the points, and that is absolutely true. And at this, you don't make the Champions League on style. You make Champions League on points, and therefore, I mean, the results that have happened were back down to sixth. The results that's happened since with Chelsea winning last night. So we've still got work to do. But that's fine. We've got a game in hand, really. And it's all there to be played for. And a good game this weekend to make another step forward, hopefully.
Fingers crossed. And we bumped into each other after the game,
Yep.
and I know you were just absolutely raving about a certain Italian in the middle whose cross ended up in the back of the net. But you were just impressed with Tonali just
Oh,
entirely.
Oh, I mean, this guy is absolute quality. He is the top of the top quality. And I'm not talking about the alleged wonder goal, which he admitted afterwards was 70% cross and 30% goal. And bless him, he's honest, he's probably robbed him of potential goal of the season because there's no way you're going to give goal of the season to a guy who says I didn't mean it virtually. But it was a wonderful way clipped across the ball. But what I was raving about wasn't the goal, although it was so welcome because it won us the match. But he's just quality. He is a day. It is on a day when some of the passing of people like Bruno. I mean, some of it was good. Bruno's passing wasn't at times that good. Certainly Isak and Joe Linton, for me, right from the start, looked as though they were carrying, and they were carrying, and therefore they weren't as effective as they can be. Uh, Tonali, he sits in between the two centre halves. He is a terrific shield for them, first and foremost, which gives them the confidence, Shaw and Byrne, to get on with it. The fullbacks were outstanding, I thought. Tonali was the best. The two fullbacks were the next best two players we had. But his vision from that position in between the two centre halves, his vision, he anticipates where he ought to be to stop the other side from playing. He gets forward at every opportunity. His use of the ball is terrific and he's athletic. He is the real deal. He really is. And he has got stronger and stronger as the season's gone on. And I'm so pleased for him because he had a rough time. Not just the 10 months that he was out, but after his debut, he looked a little bit iffy when he first come. He looked a little bit fish out of water. Do I really want to be here? Can I understand the language? Do I like the culture? Am I missing home? And what he's become is just outstanding, and all of Italy can forget about him because we've been concentrating on who wants Isak and how much will they pay, and do Liverpool still want Anthony Gordon, and will somebody pay Bruno's release clause? Hey, all the Italian clubs want him back. What a surprise that is. He ain't going anywhere, same as Isak and everybody else. He's too important to us. If we are going to get in the Champions League, if we are going to win more trophies, Tonali's got to be part of our side. He is really quality. And in a midfield of three big names, um, Joe Linton's, they're all important for different reasons, Andrew. Aren't they? Joe Linton's the beast. Bruno's the fellow with the passing skills going forward, but Tonali's a bit of everything. Tonali for me is the real deal.
Yeah, John's just a little bit of a fan, as I'm sure you guys are as well. I'm just going to quickly pause the show because we've got a special giveaway for our listeners and viewers, John. So I'm just going to get the
Right?
prize here for those watching on YouTube, for those listening on the audio channel. Um, it is a commentary chart from the Cup final, from the Carabao Cup final. It's Clive Tilsley's commentary chart, so it's framed, and basically it's just his research that he's put together to help him get through the game. So we've got both sides there named, the subs, we've got stats about the manager and the assistants and all that. So we're going to give one of these away. We've got one behind me in the studio as well, and we give one away in a live event last week as a raffle prize. So thank you to Clive for supplying them. And you can head over to his website. Is it on here? It's not on here, but it is commentarycharts.co.uk. So do head over there and check that out. Sorry, it's commentarycharts.com. So commentarycharts.com. And there is another Newcastle United selection that you could pick up, which is the 96 victory over Manchester United, just the small matter of a 5-0. But this is the one we're giving away, this cup final one. And to get your hands on it, what we need you to do, if you're listening on the audio channel, make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you've left us a rating review. If you're on the podcast chat, the YouTube channel, make sure you've liked this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. And we need you to email in at the EIBW podcast at reachplc.com. And we need you to send the answer to this question. So on Newcastle United's bench in the cup final was number 78. I want you to send me the name of the player who was number 78 as he sat on the bench during Newcastle United's cup final against Liverpool. So send me the answer to that question to the EIBW podcast at reachplc.com to be within a chance of winning this wonderful bit of history, Clive Tilsley's commentary chart from the cup final. Right, now we've done that, John. Hopefully get lots of responses and lots of
Yeah,
answers.
great prize. Anything to do with Newcastle winning a cup at Wembley is a great prize, and I think you'll get a very, very good reaction to that. You ought to. It's a special prize.
Yeah, it certainly is, and we'll get that into the post to whoever wins it. Right, you will have until the next match preview to enter, by the way, so till next Thursday to get your hands on that. Eddie Howe has held his press conference, John, and there are a few injury concerns. Alexander Isak is probably the main one. He had to leave the pitch midway through the game against Brentford after scoring it. Now, it turns out that he'd actually injured himself in the warm-up to the Brentford game, but managed to play on through the pain barrier before it became too much for him. Eddie Howe says he will look at him on Friday and he'll be assessed and a decision will be made. Our chief Newcastle United writer has said that he thinks Isak will play and it's a bit precautionary rather than something to be worried about. Eddie Howe, of course, didn't give too much away other than what we expected him to say. Look, I don't know. I mean, look, we have to hope everything is all right and he plays because he's that important. What's your gut telling you?
My guts tell me he'll play because my guts tell me that Eddie then contemplate not playing with him unless both his legs fall off. I think he'll start. What we need is for him to be effective and to be fit enough to be effective because he wasn't really effective against Brentford. I mean, he missed. In 5 minutes, he missed a great headed opportunity. And then, right on the stroke of half time, he ought to, when he got away by a mistake by a defender and he was bearing down on goal, he ought to have finished. It ended up with him chipping a pass that was headed in by Bonds, who was offside. He then inevitably got his goal. Why? Because great goal scorers do, and that was his 20th Premier League. And I mean, he's got 20 Premier League and 24 all in, and he had 21 Premier League last season and 25 all in. He's got another 9 matches if he's fit, in which to top that. I mean, it's phenomenal. But he worries me that not only is he quality, not only is he a goal scorer, as was Supermac, as was Shearer and Ferdy and Andy Cole, but when we look at what his backup is, it's nil. And I'm concerned about Callum Wilson, and I'm a bit sorry for him because he's done such a good service for us. But I look at him when he comes on now, and when I've got to be truthful. I've got to be truthful. As much as I'm delighted for what he's done for us, his impact's virtually nil. He played for the last half an hour against Brentford, and his impact was virtually nil. He looks to me, body language, as if he's accepted his fate. I don't mean he's not trying. It's totally, totally, totally different. But he's accepted his fate. There are free transfers coming at the end of the season. I see the same body language in Sean Longstaff, and I saw it in Miggy before Miggy left. That Miggy was getting frozen out, was accepting his fate. It He was sad about it, but accepting it. I see that in Sean Longstaff, and in a different way, I see it in Callum. He doesn't look a threat anymore, and his greatest asset during all his time here was he'll get you a goal, and he was quite quick. He doesn't look as if he'll get a goal, and he doesn't look quite quick. I think that he's resigned to playing out the end of his career somewhere else. And by the way, it is not meant as me fingering him at all, because the services give us 48 goals in our colours, etc., etc., has been top of the range. But he no longer, and age-wise, and the injuries he's had, he's not going to be climbing up the hill. He's going to be on the other side, but hopefully going down gently. Um, but no, I don't think that he was the player he was, and certainly injury-wise, it won't allow him to be. And so the bottom line, because Asula's a real raw kid who looks, while he's still learning the game, for me, Asula looks better wide, because you've got more space out there. There's more green grass. You can run into it. He looks better. Congested through the middle, playing a proper centre forward. I don't think he's got all the tools yet. He's quick. It could come, but I don't think he's got all the tools yet. So that's a position we've got to put right in the summer. In the meantime, we've got to pray Isak plays for us in the remaining games, because, as I said, we're no longer in an automatic Champions League place. We've got to go and get it. So we need Isak, as we need Tonali and the others. We need them to be fit, because this squad is thin, Andrew. In the injuries you mentioned, we had a Trippier came off, Joe Linton battled on, but his knee was bothering him yet again. Isak Target was had an illness, and you've already got Hall out, and you've already got Botman out, and you're not sure how fit Gordon is after his 3-match suspension. That's a thin squad. We can't afford it to be any more thin. And that is why we've got to buy in the summer, but that's for another day. But yes, we need players to be available to us. And what I think is important, it's okay being on the pitch, but how fit are you? I mean, Joe Linton was perhaps 70% of what he would normally be. Isak was probably 55, 60%. It's not just being on the pitch, it's being on the pitch and up to running speed.
And I guess when you look at the actual squad depth of the clubs around Newcastle, you look at maybe Aston Villa or Chelsea, and you could name several other clubs. It would be a miracle, really, if Newcastle managed to get Champions League football based on the options that he has, because, as you say, the squad is relatively thin in comparison
It
to the
is.
teams around Newcastle chasing the same spot.
It is. It is. It will be. If we made Champions League and have won the League Cup, what a double that is. That is this particular season. That is a tremendous double, and that is a springboard for the transfer market in the summer and for next season. We're going to have Europe, because even if we're dropped away from the Europa League, and I don't think we will, we've got the conference through the League Cup. We're in the playoffs for that, and we would not only qualify, but would actually do very well and could win it, in my humble opinion, if we go into it. But it may be the Europa League. But if we're going to make the big bucks, and if we're going to attract the star players this summer, as well as keep our own, you want the Champions League.
Indeed. As you mentioned there, you had Joe Linson, you had Kieran Trippier also picking up knocks. And again,
Yeah.
anyhow, saying the same on those as he did with Isak, they're going to be assessed. Kieran Trippier, again, performed quite well against Brentford. I mean, he's kind of risen from the ashes, so to speak. And again, it goes back to that squad depth. They've got Emil Kraft, but then you want down to the bare bones, because if Matt Target isn't able to play, you've got no fullbacks to come in if Kraft has to come in for Trippier. There's no backup after that.
Yeah, I mean, Newcastle losing Lewis Hall, and we forget now he's out, what a good season Lewis Hall's had. Not only has he become a full England international, but you could have said at one stage he was in line to be Newcastle's Player of the Year. And now, bless him, because of a long-term injury, he's almost forgotten about. But to be able to then bring in Trippier at right back, who would 34-year-old in with two kids like Livramento and Hall, looked as though he was cover at most, bound for a transfer out of the club, more likely. He came in for a cup final and for this run-in, which was so important, and Livramento was flipped over to the other side. And they've both been outstanding, both at Wembley and against Brentford. I thought the two fullbacks were terrific against Brentford. Tonali was my man in the match, but the two fullbacks were terrific. And Trippier has just flicked that switch to go back into what he was. I mean, when he first come, he was so instrumental in everything that took off at Newcastle. It was down to him. And he's looked like that again. It shows what a terrific player he is, because he did look as though he was on the gentle slide towards leaving, and that he was resigned to that's the way it is, because that's the life of a footballer, etc., etc. But when the moments come along and we've needed him, and I admire him yet again, because I did in the first place, for doing that. And by the way, we've got to say, is this Tino Livramento just a Rolls Royce? He doesn't run or trundle or have an engine. He purrs. He purrs when he goes. He's just quick. He's enthusiastic. He's good on the ball. He's played Saha in their best player, the guy you would like us to sign, and I know why you would like Andrew, but he's played against those two in the last two games and done terrific, mate.
Yeah, and then Jared Bowen before him, and hopefully that can continue in the remaining games of the season. But we'll have to wait and see what happens with Trippier, and whether Emil Kraft will come in for him. And Big Joe there as well. You mentioned that he had a bit of an issue with his knee, and I did a podcast on Thursday, John, about how actually he was probably the unsung hero against Brentford if you look at the stats, because defensively he was absolutely brilliant. He was winning the most duels. He was the most accurate with his passes, tackles flying in as well. And that was him, as you say, operating it properly, 70, 80% at best.
Yeah.
We obviously talk about Tonali winning the game. Bruno wasn't at his best. But Joe Linton, if the other two are kind of the classy midfielders, then Joe Linton is the tank that complements both of them.
Joe Linton's the beast of the side, and that's very important. We've got a very good mix in there with the three. They complement each other very, very much. I mean, the only reason I say is that he was 75, 80%. As you say, his stats were still terrific. But when you saw him at 100% in the cup final, what a man mountain that was. I mean, goodness gracious me. He's tracking a player 40 yards back, tackling him from behind, clean as a whistle, putting the guy on the seat of his pants and roaring at the crowd with clenched fists. I mean, that guy was unplayable. Um, and yes, he did well, but he did well beneath what he was. I mean, he came out with his knee bandaged. It was bothering him. It's a concern, Andrew, because it was the knee that was originally bothering him. And so it's a concern that it flares up again. Of course, it's a concern. But he is. I mean, if you detach yourself from the situation, are you sure it's the same guy that played centre forward for Newcastle? Because I'm not certain that we haven't got a ringer gone in there somewhere along the line under the name of Joe Linden, because he looks a totally different guy to the guy that played centre forward. He looks a proper footballer now, and he is that. And good for him in reinventing himself, because we give a lot of credit, and quite rightly so, to Eddie Howe for switching his position. But my Jove, whatever the boss does, you've got to make it happen. And he has made it happen at Newcastle. So the credit that ought to go to him as well has been a bit overlooked. Eddie takes the credit, and I can understand it, because it was Eddie's thoughts that made the switch. But by Jove, Eddie can make the switch, but Joe Linton's got to make it happen, and he has made it happen.
Yeah, Julian had to buy into it, and he certainly has done. Fingers crossed he will be all right for Monday. And the other one is Anthony Gordon, who will now be available after completing his suspension. But he did pick up an injury during the international break against Albania, and he is also going to be assessed. From people who were at the press conference, I think they were less confident, less sure on Gordon featuring on Monday than maybe the rest of them. And look, John, Gordon is fantastic. He's really, really brilliant. But there's no rush to get him back. Harvey Barnes is doing a great job on that flank. He'll want to go back to the King Power and make an even bigger impression and continue this good form he's on. I think if Barnes had come into this game on the back of some poor performances, then the calls to have Gordon back straight away would be quite loud. But as it is, it's against an inferior opposition, no disrespect, and there's no easy games in the Premier League. But there is no need to rush Anthony Gordon back for Monday, simply because Harvey Barnes, I think, is actually doing the business and is actually really trying to stake a claim for that position as his own.
Yeah, and Harvey Barnes will love going back to Leicester, because they're the team that he left, and that should inspire him for a very good performance. But I go back to what they're saying. It's all right having a good starting 11, but you've got to look at the bench. I want Gordon to at least make the bench and get on in 60 minutes at Leicester, because, it's no good. We were saying, well, Harvey Barnes is doing well, and there was an assist from Jacob Murphy, bearing in mind that Gordon can play on the right side. That's fine. But what if one of them dips a little bit and has to come off? Murphy was brought off in an hour the other night, and he wasn't injured. He just run his course. He wasn't quite making the impression, despite making the Isak goal, and good for him, and big hearted, and we say all those things. But the Newcastle at Leicester, Newcastle against Brentford, Newcastle for the rest of the season aren't the starting 11. It's the bench. And the bench is frail. We've said that. So I want Gordon to at least be on the bench. I don't want him not to take part in the match at all, because we can't afford that. I mean, what if he doesn't take part in the match? What if Joe Linton didn't? And what if Isak didn't? We can't handle that. We need these people around. And I want Gordon around, regardless of it. Let Eddie then make a decision. 3 wingers for 2 positions. Let him make a decision who starts, but let's at least have him available at some stage to take part in the game, because we're not that well off. We had a couple of kids on the bench against Brentford, didn't we? And not having to go at kids, but we've just said that it's amazing Newcastle are where they are, going for Champions League with the thinness of the squad. So let's not rule Gordon out or say it doesn't matter if he's not there. It matters hugely that he's around on match day. Matters hugely.
Well, let's say, John, that the injury picked up with England is it's past. He's fine. He's available to be picked. Who are you picking on the flank?
That's a very, very good question. If he was 100% and everybody else is
Yeah.
100%, and I'm I'm leaning towards he's not quite 100% and he'll be on the bench. This is what I'm leaning towards that Eddie will do. That's what I think Eddie will do. But if he was 100%, and it was up to me, and it certainly isn't, I would play Harvey Barnes outside left and I would play Gordon outside right and put Murphy on the bench and bring Murphy on because that's going to be his future at Newcastle. He's going to be an impact sub and a very, very valuable one. And thank you, Jacob, for all you do for us because you're good. But that's what I would do, as you asked me. If it was up to me, I would have Gordon on the right and Barnes on the left.
Well, let us know in the comments and on social media what you would do if everyone was fit and available to be picked. I mean, the rest of the team kind of, again, picks itself. And why would you change a winning side? So we just have to keep everything crossed that everyone is fit and raring to go. We spoke on the last match preview about setting the tone, John, and we spoke about at the start of the show as well that the 3 points was the best possible thing to really lay down a marker, and they got it, obviously. Chelsea ended up winning and beating Spurs, so they're back up to fourth. You then got City in fifth on 51 points, Newcastle on 50 points in sixth, and then 2 point gap to Aston Villa. But it's still very close from fourth down to eighth, really. And it's really important, is it, that Newcastle win on Monday? Like it's that simple. If they want Champions League football, they have to be winning these games.
Without a shadow of doubt. Without a shadow of doubt, that's what this game is. Because you said early on, and you were quite right there, Eddie Howe always says it, there's no easy games in the Premier League. And I know where people are coming from, and that's right. But I'll tell you one thing, mate. This is as easy as it can get in the Premier League if there's no easy games, because Leicester are dead men walking. They're going back to where they are. They've lost their last 7 games without scoring a solitary single goal, Andrew. They've lost 14 of the last 15. Now that's horrendous. That isn't a blip. That is a white flag on the top of a pole being waved over the top of the parapet, isn't it? I mean, let's not, just because Newcastle are going there and we're a little bit worried about how well they'll do, let's not avoid facts. The facts are Leicester have lost 14 of the last 15. They've lost the last 7 without scoring a single goal. I mean, Wood van Nistelrooy, he will be history if he continues like this. Wood van Nistelrooy, who was a serial winner as a player at Man U and Real Madrid, is a serial loser here. I mean, he has made no impact as a manager at Leicester whatsoever. I mean, you can't get better than having to face Leicester if it's as tight as that for the Champions League, because that ought to be 3 points come what may. Whether Gordon's fit or not, I don't want to say whether Isak's fit or not, because he'll score the goals so he's not there. But you know what I mean. This should be. Now, the interesting thing, I think, Andrew, we often say, don't we? And I've said it myself, and you've said it, and everybody else, that Newcastle are at their best against the best. And it looks that way when you look at the top 3 in the table. We've beaten Liverpool in a showpiece cup final at Wembley. We've beaten Arsenal 3 times. We've beaten Nottingham Forest 3 times. We're good. We're at our best against the best, but we're a bit more vulnerable against the rest. Now, I then looked at it and said, well, is that true? And it is. But I think where we're vulnerable against the rest is when we play the mid-table sides who are half decent. They've got no pressure on them because they're mid-table. They can play with a little bit of freedom. They can suck us in and hit us for the counter-attack. But, in this what gives me hope for going to Leicester, when we play the doomed, well, okay, we have gone to Southampton this season and won 3-1. We've gone to Ipswich and won 4-0. We've gone to West Ham and won 1-0. We've gone to Wolves and won 2-1. That's all the teams at the bottom we've won at their ground. Now to complete the set right, Leicester, and let's hope that trend continues.
Yeah, fingers crossed it does. And then what is the message in the dressing room that Eddie Howe will be delivering to the players, though? Because we often talk about there's no easy games. Don't write off the opposition. Don't underestimate them. But Leicester are just shocking. I mean, everyone's focusing on Southampton, but Leicester, goodness me, you read the
Oh,
numbers out there. It beggars belief, really. I mean, I had to check it 3 or 4 times when I was looking myself at the numbers. And on paper, this is a game Newcastle United should win night and day. But there has to be a message delivered to the players, doesn't there, that don't walk onto that pitch thinking that you've won this game, because if that's your attitude, then you'll soon get a shock. Or is it that Leicester are that bad? You can go in with attitude and you still should probably win.
No, you mustn't go. But you could probably win with that attitude. But the whole thing is, you ought not to go that way. You ought to go with your professional pride. And I think Eddie will be saying, you're on the cusp of having one of the most memorable seasons of modern times at Newcastle United if you get the Champions League to go with winning the cup. This will be one of the most remembered seasons of all time. Forget the little blips we've had along the way. Yes, we've had them, but this will be memorable. Now, what we've got to do when we go down there is there's such a feel good factor in the city. This side, it's no good me, Eddie should say, it's no good me trying to pretend this is a tough match for you, because facts are facts. Have lost the 14 out of the last 15. I am not going to deny that. But what I'm going to say to you, do you want to be beaten by a side like that? Do you want that on your record? Do you want to come back from Leicester, who have lost 14 of the last 15, the last 7 without scoring a solitary single goal? Do you want to come back beaten by them? Now, if you don't, you better get out there and sort them out, because you're good enough to do that. You're more than good enough to do that. They're doomed. They're going back from where they are. You're fighting for the Champions League. Just show that difference in class, show your pride, show your difference in class. Don't be complacent, because I tell you what, if you're going to lose a game before the end of the season, this is not the one you want to lose, mind.
And obviously, aside from guarding against complacency, Newcastle versus Leicester's the last fixture of the weekend as well. And just looking at the fixtures here, you've got Villa and Forest. So, let Forest win that one and continue their march on to third. You've got Bournemouth versus West Ham. Bournemouth have really fallen off in recent weeks. Chelsea away to Brentford. So fingers crossed Brentford can rediscover that home form that they had in the early part of the season. And then Man City, Man United, Man City away to Old Trafford in the Manchester derby. And as much as I love to see Manchester United getting beat, we want
We
them to
want them
win that one. But my
absolutely.
question, John, is about, like, do you think players are aware of what's going on around them? Like, how aware will they be of the league table? Because let's say Man City and Chelsea both win, and all of a sudden the league table looks a lot different. Or do you think anyhow just tries to get them to focus on their job in hand? You can't impact what Chelsea do at Brentford, and you can't impact what City do at Old Trafford. So why worry about it?
Yeah, I mean, everybody's individual. Eddie can't control the minds of every individual player. And if you take the 9 on the bench and the 11, there's 20 players. They're all different. They'll have Eddie can try to make them focus on the game, etc., but different players are different ways. I remember being very much part of the entertainers, and there were certain players and entertainers knew exactly how many points Newcastle needed to do this, etc., etc. David Batty, who was in England in the national and a midfielder who broke up things and made things happen. He never knew who we were playing the next week, and he never knew the team we were playing this week where that team was in the league. He never, can you believe it? He never watched football on telly at home. He never, can you believe that? Of a top player, he never watched games on telly at home. He didn't know. You could have offered him £1 million to tell me who Newcastle are playing next week, and he couldn't have told me. You could offer him £500,000 to tell you what position the team is that he's playing this Saturday in the league, and he wouldn't know. He knew how to go out there and get the job done. But now he's an exception. There ain't a lot of players like that, but he's an exception. But everybody's different, and it's what turns you on, what works for you. Whether you're a mathematician or whether you worry about good luck and you're superstitious, or you do what you need to do to get through the game. But I mean, in the main, yes, they know what's happening elsewhere and what they've got to do, and it's quite simple. Forget about the rest. If you win your next 9 games, I bet you'll be in the Champions League.
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. Come on then, John. Give us your result prediction. How is this one going to go?
Newcastle are going to win. Of course they're going to win, for goodness gracious me. I've just read out those horrible sets of figures, and you're playing that. And yes, there can be an exception in the whole thing. By the way, they've lost 14 in the last 15. The one they won was away to Spurs, which shows you how Tottenham are Spursy, isn't it? Because even Leicester won there. Goodness gracious, how's Ange still in a job? But there we go. Newcastle are going to win, and I'm going to take 3-0.
Yeah, I think they will win. I'm going to go for 4-0. I'm feeling overly optimistic, which is usually a very bad
That's
sign.
great.
But this is a game Newcastle
That's
United
good.
must be winning if they're going to qualify for the Champions League.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much to John, as always, for providing the match preview. Thank you to you guys for watching and listening. Do take advantage of an exclusive offer on your NordVPN plan. You can hit the link in your podcast description box where you can protect your devices. It can be used across 10 of them, and you can also support the podcast by signing up, and prices start from just £2.30 per month. Thank you again to John. Thank you to you guys as always. And for myself, I will see you guys very soon.